again.
Yes.
All right.
So I feel really good. I'm excited about this one.
She's the pro, so she should be pretty good at it. What are we talking about?
So today we're talking about projects, specifically like home projects. Could be interior, exterior, either way. But how do you decide which ones to do yourself and which ones should you hire out?
Yeah, this will be good for me too.
It's good for all of us. There are so many projects I want to do at my own house.
Gosh, the list is growing. The list is growing.
Yeah.
Well, I know that we have talked about this a ton because it applies to any industry. It applies to me in marketing. It applies to you, especially you in construction and design. Is this idea of the project triangle, right?
Yeah.
The project management triangle.
Yeah.
The triangle. Walk us through it.
So I think it has a couple of different names, but we're going to call it the project management triangle.
Okay.
And yes, and it applies to any industry. So we're not just talking about construction. You can use it in your job that you have now. It does not matter. This triangle is applicable, and it's used, in the project management world. But like I said, it's applicable anytime you're talking about a project of any sort, no matter the industry. So the triangle is it includes three things: quality, budget, and timeline. Those are the three things.
Budget, timeline,
triangle. And so the quality of the work is constrained by the project's budget, deadline, and the scope. So if you want technical, you could read that off of Wikipedia if you Googled the project management triangle.
But we're not Wikipedia, and we're going to translate this into woman language for all of you to understand.
Yes, exactly. Correct. Exactly. So basically, the quality, the budget, and the timeline, those are your constraints in any project, though. Those are your constraints. And so we're going to break those three things down into kind of like a structure for making decisions when it comes to home projects.
Yes, but when I use this triangle too, and I know you and I just talked about this, is that there's a limit. You can't have your cake and eat it too when it comes to this. Am I right?
That's the whole point of the triangle. That's the whole point of the triangle.
Explain that part of it.
Yes. So just like Megan said, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have it fast. You can't have it cheap, and you can't have it the best quality. All three things.
You cannot have all three.
You have to pick two.
Correct.
Pick two. Two of the three.
Two.
And that.
I'm gonna keep saying that. Two.
Pick two.
That means if you want it fast and you want it good, it is not going to be cheap.
Yes.
And if you want it good and you want it cheap, you're not going to get it fast.
Correct.
It applies to all things, projects and life.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Do we need to say it again?
Two things. You can only have two things.
You can only have two things.
I think this matters a lot, even like I said, in marketing, but it definitely matters every time I come on to my own home projects.
Yeah.
I'll be texting her and we talk about this constantly. You're like, you can't have it all. So which one are you going to do? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah. So this is how, these three things, that's how I break down the decision as to whether or not something should be done yourself or hired out for somebody else to do for you.
Yes, ma'am.
So the first one, let's talk about budget.
Do we talk about budget or do we give an example first? What do you think?
We can give an example.
Give a quick example that you've personally had to apply this triangle. It's literally like a love triangle. Oh my God, like you can't have all three. Anywho, a good example.
The rules of three apply in so many ways.
I know. One other day we'll talk about that.
So I have actually two good examples.
Okay. Make it quick.
The first one is in our big home renovation back in 2017.
Got it.
Okay. We were on a budget, and thank goodness this was pre-pandemic, because I would have never been able to afford what we did in today's time. So I feel very fortunate and lucky for that. But even then I was on a strict budget. So I wanted these beautiful wooden doors. And it just so happened I found some. They looked rough. I think they were out of a house that had been demoed probably 30, 40, 50 years ago.
And they weren't beautiful wooden at the moment.
Correct. But they
Yes.
were wooden doors, and I knew that I could reuse them.
Yeah.
So I stripped them myself and sanded them, refinished them, and left them how they were. I just oiled them. I did not put any finish on them. It's just this wonderful, gorgeous, like solid wood.
They are pretty.
They are seasoned with age. They're gorgeous color. They are not like, if you went and bought a wood door today, you're gonna get a pine door. You can pay more for different wood types, but they are expensive. I got these for free.
Yeah.
So they fit my budget.
So we got cheap
first.
Yep. And then we got good. You wanted them to be good.
I wanted them to be good quality.
So what did you sacrifice?
Time.
How long? How long did it take you?
It took me the entire length of the project to finish these doors.
Which was how long?
10 months.
Yes. 10 months to finish doors, y'all.
And then,
for example,
I even had another door that I had to wait and finish after the project was over and install after we moved in because I ran out of time.
See?
So it took forever. And I found out a lot about stripping doors. My skills increased, but in terms of time, I invested quite a bit.
And that is something you would do again or would not?
Again, it depends on my priorities at the time. It depends on the project, but it worked for that time. If I had the money, I would buy new doors. Unless it was a feature item, and then all rules, there are no rules.
Right. Well, that's the exception. We can do another show on.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about the other one. What
Okay.
was the other
example? One, super, it's less dramatic. I wanted a freshening of our garage. We did nothing to it at the time when we renovated. It just kind of looked shabby. It hadn't been painted. There was no real built-in storage. We had done some renovations to it. We added an access door to be able to put wood into like our wood box to our fireplace in the living room. So there were cuts in the plywood in the garage. We put in another storage kind of closet in there, because when we built the new fireplace, which is on the back side of the garage, we created like new cubbies and holes that could be, that weren't there before. So we created a little storage closet. There were demo marks and cuts, and it was just all banged up. And that door was one that was being thrown away or had been saved. And so it was, again, another reused door, but we didn't do anything to it. It looked rough. It looked like a garage. It wasn't cleaned up. I just didn't have storage like I needed to. And it just wasn't turned into a junk hole.
Right.
So I knew that I didn't want to spend a bunch of money on it. Again, I was on a budget. But we still ended up spending quite a bit. I haven't tallied it all up. I was going to do a good Instagram post about it.
Well, you hired out for some of this.
It's true.
So I think I mean, like outsider looking in, and you got it done pretty quickly from what your start time was.
I got it done in about a month and a half.
I think on a project management, that's pretty manageable, right? So
true.
Almost looking back, it's almost like you sacrificed budget for quality and time because you did bring some people in.
Yes, I kind of did like a hybrid option. Yeah, it was like a hybrid. I brought
didn't
people
get all
in
three because stuff got expensive. Yeah,
and you never get all three. But you're right. I did more of like a hybrid solution to be able to get it done in a decent time frame so it didn't lag on and on. But I also value the time. We're going to talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah,
in like on down in the episode, because these days I value my time differently than I did when we were back in 2017.
Yeah. So when it comes to the triangle, you sacrificed money, the budget.
Correct.
But you had a hybrid of DIY / hire out.
Correct.
So
correct. And that's
to
always
put it into context.
That's always an option too.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's break these down then.
Yeah.
Those are two examples. And within the first one, the first example, you did not sacrifice budget. In fact, that's one of the two you got.
I was
The
the driver.
second one, you sacrificed budget because
Correct.
you spent more. So break down budget for us.
Okay, so budget. Your budget, in very simple terms, is the money you have available to spend on the project. But the problem is that sometimes we do not figure in enough money, or do not figure in the fact that the project isn't necessarily over when the work is done.
Yeah, budget can be broken down into a couple of different categories, right?
Right,
Mm.
right. And so, I mean, I'm just going to use an example. Our company, the company that I work for, we include in all of our jobs in the contract price that the client receives, it's included to have a professional cleaner come and clean up after the job's done. It's
Right.
included with the price. You don't even have to think about it. The client doesn't have to think about it. It's already included, which is a nice service that we provide. But I mean, it's included with our contract price.
Yeah. Most contractors don't necessarily do that.
Exactly.
For my renovation, I needed to add cleaning into my budget. Yes.
Exactly. And so, that's something to consider in terms of your budget, because after the work's done, especially if you have a major renovation done, you're going to have a lot of dust, you're going to have a lot of debris. Some contractors, unfortunately, and this is how people get a bad reputation, or how construction in general can get a bad reputation when it comes to like home remodeling. People don't clean up. They leave trash at your house. They leave their lunch trash, their cigarette trash. They leave all kinds of crap at your house that you are left to clean up. And this is how construction can get a bad rap. But
it's a part of the industry. Like even doing construction for a major fitness franchise, like it was the same thing. Your subcontractors that do construction are not cleaners.
Right. And if you're hiring
they're there for a trade.
If you're hiring a good contractor, they should be cleaning up the job site. And again, that's in
subcontractors may not.
Exactly. Subcontractors typically do not.
Correct.
And it's your general contractor that should be cleaning up the job. But if you don't hire a general contractor, or you sacrifice a little bit of budget and use a contractor that maybe isn't the most expensive, highest end, you might be stuck cleaning up the job yourself. Quality. Correct. So, that's something to consider, that there are going to be some things that cost money after the actual work is done. Also consider if you found your inspiration image on Pinterest and it's that beautiful curated
built-in or fully completed.
Yeah. You're going to have to save some of your budget to furnish that project. And at minimum, consider your window coverings. That is the sneakiest expense, because those things can be expensive, even if you're ordering from a big box store like Lowe's, because Lowe's can sell some really beautiful things, especially in their custom blind department and things like that. But if you're not budgeting that in, those expenses are going to sneak up on you and be really expensive.
I can preach on this for a second, because we did not have blinds on any of our bedrooms for about almost a year after our renovation.
Yeah.
Don't ask me what happened, but like how we managed, but we did not have blinds on our bedroom and front bathroom.
I remember that.
I did not budget, and we got them, but it is because I also wanted very specific ones, and they were not included in the budget. And a renovation takes a lot of money from your original project budget.
Yeah.
And so we had to wait, and we did, and we made do until we made do with some curtains that weren't what I wanted. But that was one of those expenses that definitely snuck up on me in my renovation.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And so the window coverings are a big thing that sometimes get left out of the budget that you should really consider. But also if you're wanting that curated look, even when it comes to decor, make sure that's included in your budget as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were talking about this, and we were talking budget you have to include within your budget, the decisions that you're making. What was it, the people, or is that timeline? We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
There's some things in there that you just have to remember as far as all of those things go.
All
the things, it's my chance. All the things go in the budget, not just the work done, but the aftermath of the work done.
Right.
And the completion of what you want your outcome to look like.
And so this is the last thing I'll say about budget, because it's a big one, because you and I don't come from generational wealth or anything, and we're not making bajillion dollars at our day jobs. Money dictates a lot of my decisions. And so, you know, what can I afford versus what I can't afford? And I think most people are like that. Even if a client comes in and tells me they have no budget, I promise you they do.
Yeah.
They have a limit as to what they want to spend.
Yeah.
But the one thing I just want to say, and it's, my parents used to say this all the time. I think it gets said multiple times in industry, and it's just one of those things that gets said and thrown out there, but you get what you pay for.
Yes.
About 99% of the time.
That is accurate in all things.
You get what you pay for. So if you have a small budget, you will get what you pay for. Now, there are ways to get more bang for your buck, for sure. For sure. That's where the DIY can come in.
Yeah.
But we're going to get on down to quality and skills and things like that. But if you know that you do not want to do it yourself and you don't have a ton of money to spend, you're really limiting yourself on the output you're actually going to receive. So I think the budget thing, you just got to be realistic.
Okay. When it comes to home projects, hot take moment.
Oh,
okay. Name one thing you don't sacrifice budget for in the home. One expense.
Can we narrow it down to a type of project? So I feel like I could have a different answer depending on the type of project. That's hard. Let's say we're talking about a kitchen and a bathroom renovation.
Okay. Good job. Yeah.
Okay.
Kitchen and bathroom. What do you not sacrifice budget on?
I'm going to go with
Plumbing. Okay. Plumbing.
Okay.
All right.
And I'm going to specifically say, I know I can't like double answer. Was that the right answer you were looking for?
I didn't have a right answer.
Well, I'm going to say plumbing because I feel like a lot of times I'm seeing people order stuff on Amazon to get the look. And I have really big concerns about the longevity of those products. And if your bathroom floods, you are in trouble. And so those trades like plumbing and electrical, those are two places I do not sacrifice.
Okay.
I can handle my grout joints being a little bit
jiffy. You always come back to that, right? Like you always come back to that.
Right.
Okay.
But once that tile is up on the wall, you can't get to that plumbing again.
Correct. Yes.
Without demoing something.
That's a very good example.
And so you want that plumbing and electrical to be sound 100%.
Okay. Exterior, like outdoor living project. What do you not sacrifice budget on?
Are we transitioning into quality?
No, we're on budget.
Okay.
We're on budget. Where do you spend on the exterior? Like an outdoor living project.
Outdoor living project.
I'm trying to make it relevant.
Everybody wants an outdoor living project.
Mine was like our patio, the decking.
Yeah.
I thought like we've done a paver patio for ourselves, but that saved budget. But honestly, having a patio poured was better, and it definitely sacrificed our budget. Okay.
That's a good one.
Cool. Well, let's talk timeline.
Okay.
What does that look like in the triangle?
Okay, so time. When do you want the project to be finished?
Now, yesterday.
Of course. Okay,
that's how it works.
So we get folks who come to us and they're ready to get started the day they call. We haven't been to the job, we don't know anything about it, but they're ready to get started. Okay. What we do is we create a timeline. And so once we've signed a job, we then create the schedule, right? And so just like any project, whether you're talking about a home renovation or you're trying to get a new software company, I don't know, for example, like there's a timeline to that project. And maybe you're changing softwares. I don't know, but you've got to create a timeline. And usually you create that timeline on when you try to create that timeline based on when you want to be finished.
Right.
But sometimes when you start that that planning process, you realize that your timeline is no longer realistic. And so if you want something done fast, we've already said it before, if you want something done fast, you better be ready to spend that money.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you just need to really level set with yourself and understand that you just might have unrealistic expectations when it comes to time.
Yeah.
Because start where you think you want to finish and work your way backwards and see if you have time to get all of your trades in. Or if you're doing the work yourself, do you actually personally have the time to meet that goal?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when it comes to time, you're talking about all kinds of different resources that you've got to pull together for a project.
Yeah. I mean,
whether you're doing it yourself or you're hiring it.
My husband tells me this all the time, that like when I get a project or an idea in my head that I want to have done, I'm always like, it's only going to take us a weekend. Never freaking takes us a weekend, just so you know. Never takes us a weekend. So no matter if it's hired people or even yourself and your husband, which you normally, it's not just you, time is affected. It's impacted.
I know. I thought we could do the garage. At first, I thought I could do the job without my husband while he was going on a golf trip. I thought I could surprise him. This is going to be great. Surprise him with this garage. And that was when I was thinking I could do all the work myself. I'll paint it. I could even paint it. He's gonna be gone in how many days? I can do this after my son goes to bed. It's gonna be fine. He's gonna be so happy I did this by myself.
Mm-hmm.
How much work did I do?
None.
I didn't do anything.
None.
I didn't do anything of it. It happened after the end of the summer, and then it took
It
again.
took
a month and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. So timeline.
And I hired some of it out. So
I know. So timeline includes, like, we narrowed it down. It includes, first of all, included in the timeline is decisions.
Decisions.
Yeah. Resources and materials.
Correct.
And then the people involved.
Yes.
Like, because it's not just you think you're going to get it across the finish line. There's always someone else involved. I mean, it's even like as easy as going to the store. Like, there's other people, you're living on other people's schedules,
Mhm.
which impacts your timeline. So you have to have realistic timelines.
Absolutely.
I mean, even Amazon sometimes doesn't get it there in 2 days.
Yeah.
So
100%. And so the timeline is not only about managing your own expectations, but it also helps you in this decision making as to whether or not to hire it out or do it yourself.
Well, and communicate to
Oh.
people involved of like, this is when I would like to have this done by, where, like, how can you get to that point, or am I not having a realistic timeline?
Mm-hmm.
So communication, timeline helps with communication too.
Yeah.
Numero 3, quality.
Yeah. And so what I want to start out first is say everybody's definition of quality work is different.
It's subjective.
Some people might try to argue that there is a standard.
There is. Yours.
Correct. Correct. And mine might be different than Megan's.
Mm-hmm.
And you can guarantee it's probably different than whoever you hire to do the work.
Yes.
Most of the time. But I mean, especially if you were trying to manage subs yourself or something like that. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to work for a really good quality general contractor, and I could definitely stand by our quality of work. Right. But you know what's funny? People actually work for us. There are people that we employ that do the work, and sometimes those people make mistakes.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we have to fix them. And so that's something.
You mean humans make errors?
And sometimes they don't show up as their best selves. And sometimes nothing, and sometimes there are those jobs. This is not what we're talking about, but I'm going down a rabbit hole. Sometimes there's those jobs where everything you touch just falls apart. Lord help us. But anyway, quality.
Yes.
Everybody has their own definition of it.
Correct.
Yeah. What is good quality? So that's the first thing to understand. And so when it comes to quality, especially if you're thinking about having somebody come do the work, making sure you are communicating your expectations is going to set you up for success as far as being satisfied with the job. Mm-hmm. The last thing you want to do is pay for something and not be happy with the outcome because of poor quality, or because the person doing the work didn't meet your expectations, and they didn't meet your expectations, not because of their lack of skill, but because you just didn't tell them.
Yeah, something we apply in our workplace, and I have to do this with some of my team members, when I'm communicating to them, is tell them exactly what I expect to receive back. And
Yes.
it like a detailed explanation of the result I want.
Yeah.
And that means what does it smell like? What is it shaped like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like?
Yeah.
All those things, and none of those things actually apply in marketing for me, but it really is a matter of I truly expect this exact thing when I get it back. And sometimes people are like, well, what's the point of me having someone else do it if I have to do all that? Well, once again, it comes back to time. You're choosing quality and time so that you're going to expect to get that back that way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Absolutely. And so another thing with quality, let's just say you're considering doing it yourself. Okay. You have your own standard of quality, and you're on a budget. So you're considering doing the work yourself. Okay. The next question you ask yourself is, do I have the skills, knowledge, or experience to get this done? Am I actually capable of doing this? And so I think sometimes when people get into trouble is that they take on a project that they really have no business taking on. And that I think where we really see this happen, and this can also happen if you hire like a handyman, somebody who's not licensed or something like that. You hire somebody to build a deck. This is where we see it a lot, is with a deck project. Is that you, however we get there, we're to a point where we're going to redo a deck, and maybe it's out of treated lumber or whatever, and it's time to replace it. It's barely hanging on to the structure. We're talking an elevated deck. And it's such a hazard. We can't believe it's still on there.
That's terrifying.
It's happened multiple times. And it's just either somebody tried to do it themselves, or they hired somebody who wasn't licensed, or whatever the situation was, it wasn't done well. And that is a huge risk, not only for your insurance company, but also just for your and your family's general health and safety. Is just making sure that you are building something of quality. Right. So if you do not have the knowledge, skills, or experience to build a deck, that should not be you should not be the one to do that project. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of an extreme on DIY, but
well, it is.
That's a huge one in terms of safety.
It taps into another area, which is timeline. Say you're like, oh, I know I'm capable of developing these skills, and I will be able to do it to the expectation of safety and quality and what I want. But once again, you're tapping into that time. So if you've chosen time and quality because you thought you would be able to get it done quickly, you're obviously not. You're failing. You're failing another area of the triangle. You're getting one which is out cheap. Like, right. Well, timeline's blown now too.
And I'll go back to my garage.
Okay.
We weren't on a strict timeline. And so I wanted to use the opportunity to learn how to build some cabinetry.
I remember seeing that.
Okay. We never built any like custom cabinetry type thing before. Of course, we've done the put it together IKEA furniture or whatever with the instructions. We've never actually built some ourselves. So I convinced my husband to invest in some tools, which
money, budget.
I really enjoy doing that. I got some new tools out of it, but we also learned some new skills. But at the same time, it took us a lot longer than I thought it was going to. That really like extended our lead time because it took us weeks to build those cabinets. I totally underestimated how long it would take, like the learning curve for us to be able to make those. So that was another thing. But if you're willing to learn the skills, understand it's going to take some more time.
Yeah.
And then I'm just going to say it again. If quality is non-negotiable and more, if quality is non-negotiable, whether you're doing it or somebody else is doing it, if they're doing to do a really, really good job, it's going to be really, really hard to do it fast.
Yeah. Because they're thorough.
Yeah. Now there are people who do fantastic work and can do it fast, and that's when you're gonna pay for that.
Yep.
Big time. But it's very, very difficult to get super high quality without spending the money for it.
There's a couple things we've already touched on, but in quality that you should never like try to take on yourself. And I know we're not tapping into permits and things like that, but you mentioned electrical and plumbing already. Was there any other ones that you're like, just don't, quality should never be a deciding factor in whether or not you hire out or do it yourself in that? I know it's a matter of, can you obtain skills and all of this stuff. Is there anything else in there?
I mean, I think it really just depends on the project that you're doing. You know, whenever, of course, I know we're not talking about permitting and things like that, because then you really get into, are you hiring licensed professionals? But when it comes to like truly custom work, let's talk about that for a minute. If you're talking about truly custom work, I think that's, the quality is non-negotiable.
Yeah.
You know,
you get what you pay for, like you said.
Yeah. Like truly, you know, anything that's custom, like, you know, let's just take built-ins, for example. Okay. And you're looking at something on Pinterest, you know, you can get the look for less by going to a big box store and doing like kind of off the shelf cabinetry. Okay. It is totally doable. You can go to Lowe's and do it. I've seen on Pinterest and Instagram people using IKEA stuff to do it. But what I really don't see on those Instagram videos is super close-up shots of that stuff. Okay, you can get the look for less as long as you're standing about 10 feet away. But if you're up close looking at it, I think it's a different story. And so if you're looking for a truly like custom built-in, pay a professional for that. You will, that their ability to do that in a quality way is just unmatched.
Well, they're masters.
Yeah, they're craftsmen.
Their art.
They are craftsmen.
Yeah.
And so if you're looking for, if you want that attention to detail, hire a professional.
Yeah, and maybe we can do a couple episodes about what we have, breaking down some of our do-it-yourself projects in detail, and then maybe we can break down some where we hired out. You know, like my renovation, completely, pretty much hired out. It was like the finishing pieces that were do-it-yourself.
Right.
You know, so maybe we can dig into those more in another episode.
Absolutely, because I mean, it just comes back to like your skills. We are not, my husband and I are not framers. You know, we're not, you know, carpenters. So that's going to be something we hire out.
Well, I also think there's an element sometimes on quality, before we wrap this up, where it's kind of like good enough works for certain things.
100%.
In a season of life. I mean, for example, one of our things was our cabinets in our kitchen currently are not custom cabinets, but it's because we have kids who have already banged them up. And I'm just like, you know what? Let them bang them up. Let it be lived in, because once they're gone, they'll need to be replaced anyway. So why would I sacrifice budget and quality for something that I'm going to have to reinvest in at a certain time anyway? That's one example.
Yeah. And on those projects where it's good enough,
okay,
the kitchen cabinets, I still would recommend getting a professional installer for a kitchen.
Oh, everything was professionally installed. Like all of that was done professionally, but quality, when it came down to making the decision between a custom cabinet and like a prefab cabinet, we still used a great company, but we didn't have custom cabinets done. So the quality there was a decision factor. So
absolutely. But the good enough factor, you know, sometimes, I mean, from a financial standpoint, good enough is good enough. And you're going to pay that good enough price. And that's really what you need at that time. It's just, I think the project management triangle really helps for folks who have unrealistic expectations. You know, I think that really helps that conversation. Because sometimes your expectations are just that good enough, and that's fine, and that works in so many ways and applications. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, that's a really good pin to put in it. It's a matter of like, if you feel like, say you write down your expectations and you have them in your head and you have this vision, maybe you take this triangle and you apply it to that to see where
Yes.
your expectations sit.
Yes.
And then talk to someone. I'm sure you can get a consultation, or I can, you can even talk to a friend that's done a project like this before that can kind of walk you through the triangle itself.
Right.
You think so?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, the 3 are quality, time, cost. And you can't have all 3, y'all. You can't have all 3.
Can't have it fast, can't have it the best quality, and can't have the cheap all at the same time.
You cannot have all the things. So
Not in this case.
no.
Pick
All
two.
right. Well,
Until next time.
until next time.